morning, everyone. Zara here. I wanted to talk a little bit this week about bills and bill payments. So last week, Nick talked to you guys about invoicing and the importance of matching those deposits that come through the bank feed to those invoices and payments, so that way you can avoid overstating your income and duplicating your sales. So the same can be said is true for your expenses, so your bills and your bill payments. So I want to show you how to avoid that error of duplicating and overstating your expenses by making sure that you have created your bill, that you've entered your bill payment, and that you've matched that to your bank fee transaction whenever it comes across your bank feed. So we're going to use our sample company here. I'm sure you guys are getting pretty familiar with it by now. But let's just use this first expense transaction that came across the bank feed or is sitting in the bank feed here for Tim Phillip Masonry. So we can see here, or we can assume that no bill or no expense has been entered yet because it is sitting in the bank feed as an uncategorized expense. So I know we've talked about that before. That means that QuickBooks has no history with this vendor, and so it just defaults to that uncategorized expense. So the first thing that I want to do is show you guys how to actually create a bill. So the easiest and most quickest way that you can do this is by going and hitting this plus new icon. So this is a really great feature. QuickBooks did some, we'll call it rearranging earlier this year. And I love this screen here because everything that you pretty much need is housed right here. So everything related to your customers, your vendors, employees, other, etc. So you will go to your vendors section and do bill. You're going to type in your vendor here. And as we mentioned, that is the Tim Phillip Masonry. So let's go ahead and, sorry, one thing that I want to do really quick is check the date. Okay, so the date that this came across the bank feed was 5/8, and the amount is $666. So I just want to make sure that whenever I'm creating my bill that it's for the same date there. So let's go ahead and change our bill date to May 8th. The due date is May 8th. So your vendors, whenever generally they have different terms. So if it's 30 days, 60 days, whatever their terms may be, you can select that here. So you could do net 30, that's a pretty common one. And then that'll auto update that due date for you. So I'm going to assume that this is some sort of labor, some specialized, can't spell labor today, some specialized service that they are doing for you. So I'm going to go ahead and do, let's just put it as installation. Okay, and we'll just go ahead and the installation here. We know that that transaction that's sitting in the bank feed right now is $666. So that's how much that I'm going to create this bill for. You can also mark this as billable. So if you have a bill and you actually want to pass on that expense to your customer, you can do that here, which we'll probably talk to you about a little bit farther down the line in our series. If this is a taxable item, you can also select that here. And as I mentioned, if you do mark this specific bill or expense billable, you would be able to select the customer here. It does look like, so I do want to mention this, if you use QuickBooks to enter your purchase orders, you do have that option to add that purchase order to the bill if that's something that you want to do. In this case, I'm not going to do that. So let's just make sure that that's good. And I'm going to save and close. Okay, so going back to the bank feed, we can see that the item that's sitting in our bank feed transactions actually has already found that bill that we created. But I do want to go ahead and actually record that bill payment. So you do that from the plus new screen that we saw earlier. So just plus new, same thing in your vendor screen, and then you will select pay bills. So what is great about this screen here is if you're going in and you're paying multiple bills at one time, this is going to populate or update all of the bills that are outstanding. So if you are writing, checks on a Friday and you want to pay all your bills that are outstanding, you have the option to actually see everything that is outstanding from the screen. So I really like this screen. I think that it helps stay on top of those outstanding expenses. So, but in this case, we are going to select that bill that we just created. I want to go ahead and mark the payment date the same date as that bill, just because that's when the transaction came across the bank feed. Okay. And make sure that you are selecting the correct account whenever you're paying your bills. So I just noticed here that the payment account defaulted to MasterCard. So we know that this transaction actually came across the checking account. So we want to make sure that whatever payment account that we are using, that we update this screen to reflect that. If you are paying by a check, you can also update that check number here so you don't lose track of those items. The payment is for the full amount, so that's $666. And this is a nice feature too. So down here, you'll notice that it says, this is in relation to whatever account that you select. So in this case, we selected our checking. So it pulls in that actual current account balance right down here for you. So you can make sure that you have enough in the bank to cover those payments that you're making. It shows the total amount of your payments. So for example, if we were paying everything that was outstanding here, we can see, we're not going to have enough in the bank to cover that. So let's deselect all of these. So this is the total amount of the payment that we're making today, leaving our account balance at $535. So I'm going to save and close. So we're going to come back to our bank feed, go down to the bottom here, and find our transaction. This is this bill payment. Let's look at both of these here. Okay. Because it is showing that two records are found. Bill payment 45. So we're just going to select that first one that we created, and we are just going to match. So similar to what Nick was talking about last week, we want to avoid duplicating and overstating our revenue and expenses. And unfortunately, that's a really common error that we see both with revenue and expenses is one, either an invoice is being created. So keep in mind what QuickBooks is doing on the back end. So when an invoice is created, it is increasing your revenue, and then it's also increasing your accounts receivable. So unless you go in there and actually receive the payment and then deposit it and match it from their bank feed, then one, your AR is still going to be listed as outstanding. So essentially what happens whenever you go and you're working in your bank feed and you don't find that match to either that invoice or that received payment is it's duplicating your income, like Nick discussed last week, but it's also leaving your receivables as outstanding. So you're not really getting a true picture of how much you're owed and from what customers. So the same can be said for the bill side of it or the bill payment side of it, right? So if you're working in your bank feed and you're recording bills, but you're not going in there and doing the bill payment on those bills and then matching that transaction when it comes across the bank feed to that bill payment, so the same thing is going to happen. Your expenses are going to be duplicated when you go into your bank feed and you add that transaction directly from your bank feed instead of matching it to that bill payment. Because whenever you matching it to that bill or that bill payment. Because what happened behind the scenes when you created that bill was it increased your expenses and then it also increased your accounts payable. So it's just going to be sitting on the books. So I know we see a lot of this at the end of the year, definitely during when we're going through clients' books and trying to get everything cleaned up for tax purposes. So we definitely want to make sure that we have captured all of our revenue, captured all of our expenses, and definitely haven't overstated either one. So I think that this was kind of a short video, but I wanted to kind of do the alternate of what we talked about last week so you guys could see the expense side of it. So I hope that that was helpful. Please let us know if there is anything else that we can help you with or any other topics that you specifically want to see. So we will talk to you later. Bye.